Olivia froze. A strange odor wafted through the old house. It was musty, like decaying earth, tinged with something metallic. Her heart pounded. This smell was new, alien. Fear pricked at the edges of her thoughts. It was coming from the basement. The house was always eerily silent. Her footsteps echoed in the hallway as she approached the basement door. The air grew colder. The metallic tang intensified. Each step she took heightened her unease. This place, usually ignored, now pulsed with a terrifying energy. Olivia reached for the light switch. The single bulb flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. Dust motes swirled in the stale air. The smell was overpowering now. She coughed, covering her mouth with her hand. This was wrong. This was very wrong. She took a hesitant step down the creaking wooden stairs. The darkness below seemed to writhe. Her hand trembled as she gripped the railing. A sense of dread washed over her. Something was down there. Something evil. The basement was vast and oppressive. Shadows clung to the corners, hiding the far walls in darkness. The musty smell intensified, choking her with its putrid sweetness. She coughed again, her eyes watering. The silence was absolute, broken only by the thump of her own heart. Olivia scanned the room, her pulse quickening. The old furnace stood silent in the corner, draped in cobwebs. Tools hung on the wall, glinting dully in the weak light. Nothing seemed out of place. Yet the air crackled with an unseen energy. She moved cautiously towards the source of the smell. It seemed to be emanating from the far wall, hidden in the deepest shadows. A chill ran down her spine. Her hand shook as she reached out to the wall. The concrete was cold and damp against her skin. As her fingers brushed against the rough surface, she felt it. A small crack, almost invisible to the eye, ran along the wall. It was warm to the touch, pulsing with an unnatural heat. And that smell, it was coming from the crack. Olivia traced the crack with her fingers. It was narrow, barely wider than a hair, but it ran the length of the wall. The heat radiating from it was unnerving. She pressed her ear against the cold concrete. A low, guttural hum vibrated from within, resonating deep in her bones. Fear tightened its grip on her. This wasn't normal. Cracks didn't hum, they didn't radiate heat, and they certainly didn't smell like death and decay. This was something else entirely, something sinister. She backed away slowly, her eyes fixed on the crack. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The shadows around it deepened, twisting and writhing like living things. She could almost feel something on the other side watching her, waiting. Then, she heard it. A whisper, faint and raspy, coming from the crack. "Let me out," it hissed. The voice was ancient, filled with an unimaginable hunger. Section 4. Whispers in the Dark. Olivia stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. The whisper echoed in the silence of the basement, sending chills down her spine. It was real. She hadn't imagined it. Something was trapped behind that wall. Something evil. She wanted to run, to escape the suffocating darkness of the basement, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. Fear, cold and paralyzing, held her captive. The whisper came again, louder this time, filled with a desperate urgency. "Let me out!" Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The voice was closer now, as if whatever was trapped on the other side was pushing its way through the crack. She could feel the heat of its breath on her face, smell the stench of decay on its breath. She turned and fled, scrambling up the stairs, her mind reeling. The whispers followed her, echoing in her ears long after she slammed the basement door shut. She was trapped in a nightmare, and the nightmare was just beginning. Section 5. Nightmares and Premonitions. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued her, vivid and terrifying. Each night, the crack in the wall grew larger, the whispers louder, more insistent. A monstrous form writhed within, its eyes burning with a malevolent light. She would wake in a cold sweat, the whispers still echoing in her ears. The smell of decay lingered in her nostrils, a constant reminder of the horror lurking beneath her house. Fear became her constant companion, a shadow that followed her every move. Days turned into an agonizing blur. Olivia couldn't escape the feeling of dread that clung to her. The whispers followed her everywhere, a constant murmur in the back of her mind. She was losing her grip on reality, haunted by the thing trapped in her basement. Her once familiar home had become a prison, every creak and groan a whispered threat. She was isolated, consumed by her fear. No one would believe her, no one could help her, she was alone. She